Hiya, family. My name is Donna. Some of you may know me as the lady who says, "Young man." Well, tonight, family, we're going to be reading from HalleluYah Scriptures, the book of Leviticus, part 2. Again, this is HalleluYah Scriptures, Leviticus, part 2. And we're on chapter 11, family. Here we go. HalleluYah Scriptures, Leviticus chapter 11. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying to them, "Speak to the children of Yisrael, saying, These are the living creatures which you do eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatever has a split hoof, completely divided, chewing the cud among the beasts that they do eat. Only these you do not eat among those that chew the cud, or those that have a split hoof. The camel, because it chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the rabbit, because it chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the hare, because it chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the pig, though it has a split hoof, completely divided, yet does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you. Their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you do not touch. They are unclean to you. These you do eat of all that are in the waters. Any one that has fins and scales in the waters, in the seas, or in the rivers that you do eat. But all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, all that move in the waters, or any living creature. Or any living creature which is in the waters, they are an abomination to you. They are an abomination to you. Of their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you abominate. All that have not fins or scales in the waters is an abomination to you. And these you do abominate among the birds. They are not eaten. They are an abomination, the eagle and the vulture and the black vulture. And the hawk and the falcon after its kind. Even raven after its kind. And the ostrich, and the nighthawk, and the seagull, and the hawk after its kind. And the little owl, and the fisher owl, and the great owl, and the white owl, and the pelican, and the carrion vulture, and the stork, the heron after its kind, and the hoopoe, and the bat. All flying insects that creep on all fours is an abomination to you. Only these you do eat of only these you do eat of every flying insect that creeps on all fours, those which have jointed legs above their feet with which to leap on the earth. These of them you do eat, the locust after its kind, and the destroying locust after its kind, and the cricket after its kind, and the grasshopper after its kind, but all other flying insects Hold on one second, family. I want to tighten this up. I don't know why. I'm here. Just give me a second, family. Just want to tighten it up. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know why it loosens up like that, but it broke. Sorry. There we go. But all other flying insects which have 4 feet is an abomination to you. And by these you are made unclean. Anyone touching the carcass of any of them is unclean until evening. And anyone picking up part of the carcass of any of them has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. Every beast that has a split hoof, not completely divided, or does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. Anyone who touches their carcass is unclean. And whatever goes on its paws among all the creatures that go on all fours, those are unclean to you. Anyone who touches their carcass is unclean until evening. And he who picks up their carcass has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. They are unclean to you. And these are unclean to you among the creeping creatures that creep on the earth, the mole and the mouse and the tortoise after its kind. And the gecko and the land crocodile and the sand reptile and the sand lizard and the chameleon. These are unclean to you among all that creep. Anyone who touches them when they are dead becomes unclean until evening. And whatever any of them in its dead state falls upon becomes unclean. Whether it is any wooden object or garment or skin or sack, any object in which work is done, it is put in water, and it shall be unclean until evening, then it shall be clean. Any earthen vessel into which any of them falls, whatever is in it becomes unclean, and you break it. Any of the food which might be eaten on which water comes becomes unclean, and any drink which might be drunk from it becomes unclean. and on whatever their carcass falls becomes unclean. An oven or cooking range, it is broken down. They are unclean and are unclean to you. But a fountain or a well, a collection of water, is clean, but whatever touches their carcass is unclean. And when their carcass falls on any planting seed which is to be sown, it is clean. But when any water is put on the seed, and any part of any such carcass falls on it, it is unclean to you. And when any of the beasts which are yours for food dies, he who touches its carcass becomes unclean until evening, and he who eats of its carcass has to wash his garments, and shall be unclean until evening. And he who picks And he who picks up its carcass has to wash his garments, and shall be unclean until evening. And every creeping creature that creeps on the earth is an abomination. It is not eaten. Whatever crawls on its stomach, and whatever goes on all fours, and whatever has many feet among all creeping creatures that creep on the earth, these you do not eat, for they are an abomination. Do not make yourselves abominable with any creeping creature that creeps, and do not make yourselves unclean with them, lest you be defiled by them. For I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, and you shall Kadesh yourselves, and you shall be Kadesh, for I am Kadesh. And do not defile yourselves with any creeping creature that creeps on the earth. For I am Yahuwah, who is bringing you up out of the land of Mitzrayim, to be your Elohim, and you shall be Kadesh, for I am Kadesh. This is the Torah of the beast and the birds, and every living creature that moves in the waters, and for every creature that creeps on the earth, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, and between the living creature that is eaten and the living creature that is not eaten. HalleluYah Scriptures, the book of Leviticus, chapter 12. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Yisrael, saying, When a woman has conceived and has given birth to a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days. As in the days of her monthly separation, she is unclean. And on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin is circumcised. And she remains in the blood of her cleansing 33 days. She does not touch whatever is Kadesh, and she does not come into the Mikdash until the days of her cleansing are completed. But if she gives birth to a female child, and then she shall be unclean for 2 weeks, as in her monthly separation, and and she remains in the blood of her cleansing for 66 days. And when the days of her cleansing are completed, for a son or for a daughter, she brings to the Cohen a lamb a year old as a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering to the door of the tent of appointment. And he shall bring it before Yahuwah and make atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the flow of her blood. This is the Torah for her who has given birth to a male or a female. And if she is not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and one as a burnt offering, and the other as a sin offering. And the Kohen shall make atonement for her, and she shall be clean. HalleluYah Scriptures, Leviticus chapter 13. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying, when a man has on the skin of his body a swelling, a scab, or broad spot, and it shall become on the skin of his body like leprous infection, then he shall be brought to Aaron the Cohen, or to try one of his sons, the Kohanim. And the Cohen shall look at the infection on the skin of the body, and if the hair on the infection has turned white, and the infection appears to be deeper than the skin of his body, it is a leprous infection. And the Kohen shall look at him and pronounce him unclean. But if the bright spot is white on the skin of his body and does not appear to be deeper than the skin, and its hair has not turned white, then the Kohen shall shut up the infected one 7 days. And the Kohen shall look at him on the 7th day and see. If the infection appears to be as it was, and the infection has not spread on the skin, then the Kohen shall shut him up another 7 days. And the Kohen shall look at him again on the 7th day and see. If the infection has darkened and the infection has not spread on the skin, then the Kohen shall pronounce him clean. It is a scab, and he shall wash his garments and be clean. But if the scab spreads further over the skin after he has been seen by the Kohen for his cleansing, he shall be seen by the Kohen again. And the Kohen shall look and see if the scab has spread on the skin. When the Kohen shall pronounce him unclean, it is leprosy. When the infection of leprosy is on a man, then he shall be brought to the Kohen, and the Kohen shall look and see if the swelling on the skin is white, and it has turned the hair white, and there is a spot of raw flesh in the swelling. It is an old leprosy on the skin of his body, and the Kohen shall pronounce him unclean. He does not shut him up, for he is unclean. And if leprosy breaks out all over the skin, and the leprosy shall cover all the skin of the infected one, from his head to his foot, wherever the Cohen looks, then the Cohen shall look and see if the leprosy has covered all his body. He shall pronounce the infected one clean. It is all turned white, he is clean. But the day raw flesh appears on him, he is unclean. And the Cohen shall look at the raw flesh and pronounce him to be unclean. The raw flesh is unclean, it is leprosy. Or when the raw flesh changes and turns white again, he shall come to the Cohen. And the Cohen shall look at him and see if the infection has turned white. Then the Cohen shall pronounce the infected one clean, he is clean. And when the body has a boil in the skin, and it is healed, and the place of the boil there comes a white swelling or a bright spot, reddish white, then it shall be seen by the Cohen. And the Cohen shall look and see if it appears deeper than the skin, and its hair has turned white, the Cohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous infection, which has broken out of the boil. But if the Cohen looks at it and sees no white hairs in it, and it is not deeper than the skin, but has faded, then the Cohen shall shut him up 7 days. And if it has been spread further over the skin, then the Cohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous infection. But if the bright spot stays in its place, it has not spread. It is the scar. It is the scar of the boil, and the Cohen shall pronounce him clean. Or when the body receives a burn on its skin by fire, and the raw flesh of the burn shall become a bright spot, reddish white or white. Oh, reddish white or white, sorry. Then the Cohen shall look at it and see if the hair of the bright spot has turned white, and it appears deeper than the skin, it is leprosy broken out in the burn, and the Cohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous infection. But if the Cohen looks at it and sees there are no white hairs in the bright spot, and it is not deeper than the skin, but has faded, then the Cohen shall shut him up 7 days. And the Cohen shall look at him on the 7th day. If it spreads further over the skin, then the Cohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous infection. But if the bright spot stays in its place and is not spread to the skin, but has faded, it is a swelling from the burn, and the Cohen shall pronounce him clean, for it is the scar from the burn. And when a man or a woman has an infection on the head or in the beard, then the Kohen shall look at the infection and see if I appear deeper than the skin. And there is thin yellow hair in it, and then the Kohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is an eruption, a leprosy of the head or bed. But when the Kohen looks at the infection of the eruption and sees that it does not appear deeper than the skin, and there is no black hair in it, then the Kohen shall shut up the infection of the eruption 7 days. And on the 7th day, the Kohen shall look at the infection and see if the eruption has not spread, and there is no yellow hair in it, and the eruption does not appear deeper than the skin. Then he shall shave himself, but the eruption he does not shave, and the Kohen shall shut up the eruption another 7 days. And on the 7th day the Kohen shall look at the eruption and see if the eruption has not spread over the skin and does not appear deeper than the skin, then the Kohen shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his garments, and he shall be clean. But if the eruption spreads further over the skin after his cleansing, then the Kohen shall look at him and see if the eruption has spread over the skin. The Kohen need not seek for yellow hair. He is unclean. But if the eruption appears to have stayed and there is black hair grown up, deeper than the skin, and there is thin yellow hair in it, then the Kohen shall pronounce him unclean. It is an eruption, a leprosy of the head or beast. But when the Kohen looks at the infection of the eruption and sees that it does not appear deeper than the skin, and there is no black hair in it, then the Kohen shall shut up the infection of the eruption 7 days. And on the 7th day the Kohen shall look at the infection and see if the eruption has not spread, and there is no yellow hair in it, and the eruption does not appear deeper than the skin. Then he shall shave himself, but the eruption he does not shave, and the Kohen shall shut up the eruption another 7 days. And on the 7th day the Kohen shall look at the eruption and see if the eruption has not spread over the skin and does not appear deeper than the skin. Then the Kohen shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his garments, and he shall be dust. But if the eruption spreads further over the skin after his cleansing, Then the Cohen shall look at him and see if the eruption has spread over the skin. The Cohen needs not seek for yellow hair. He is unclean. But if the eruption appears to have stayed, and there is a black hair grown up, in it, the eruption has healed, he is clean, and the Cohen shall pronounce him clean. And when a man or a woman has bright spots on the skin of the body, bright spots, then the Cohen shall look and see if the bright spots on the skin of the body are dull white, that the skin, he is clean. And when a man loses the hair of his head, he is bald, he is clean. And if the hair has fallen from his forehead, he is bald on the forehead, he is clean. And when there is on the bald head or bald forehead a reddish white infection, it is leprosy breaking out on his bald head or his bald forehead. And the Cohen shall look at it and see if the swelling of the infection is reddish white on his bald head or on his bald forehead, as the appearance of leprosy on the skin of the body. He is leprous man, he is unclean. The Cohen shall pronounce him unclean without fail. His infection is on his head. As for the leper who has the infection, his garments are torn and his head is uncovered, and he has to cover his upper lip and cry, unclean, unclean. He is unclean all the days he has the infection, he is unclean. He is unclean, and he is unclean, and he dwells alone. His dwelling place is outside the camp. And when a garment has an infection of leprosy in it, in a woolen garment or in a linen garment, or in the warp, or in the weft of linen or wool, or in leather, or in any leather work, and the infection shall be greenish or reddish in the garment, or in the leather, or in the warp, or in the weft, or any leather object, it is an infection of leprosy, and shall be shown to the Cohen. And the Cohen shall look at the infection and shut up the infection 7 days. And he shall look at the infection on the 7th day, and when the infection has spread in the garment, or in the warp, or in the weft, or in the leather, or any leather work, the infection is an active leprosy, it is unclean. And he shall burn that garment, or the warp, or the weft, in wool, or in linen, or any leather object in which the infection is, for it is an active leprosy, it is burned with fire. But if the Cohen looks and sees that the infection has not spread in the garment, or in the warp, or in the weft, or in any leather object. Then the Cohen shall give command, and they shall wash that in which the infection is, and he shall shut it up another 7 days. And the Cohen shall look at the infection after it has been washed, and see if the infection has not changed its appearance, though the infection has not spread, it is unclean, and burn it in the fire. It is eaten away in the inside or outside. And if the Cohen shall look and see that the infection has faded after washing it, then he shall tear it out of the garment, or out of the warp, or out of the weft, or out of the leather. And if it is still seen in the garment, or in the warp, or in the weft, or in any leather object, it is spreading infection, burn it with fire, that in which the infection is. And if you wash the garment, or the warp, or the weft, or any leather object, if the infection has disappeared from it, then it shall be washed a second time, and shall be clean. This is the Torah of the infection of leprosy in a garment of wool or linen, or in the warp, or in the weft, or in any leather object, to pronounce it clean or to pronounce it unclean. Okay, family, this is the last chapter for this book tonight. HalleluYah Scriptures, the book of Leviticus, chapter 14. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, This shall be the Torah of the leper for the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the Kohen, and the Kohen shall go out of the camp. Out of the camp, and the Kohen shall look and see if the leprosy is healed in the leper. Oh, family, after this live, I'm going to take like a half an hour break, and I'll come back with finishing up Enoch too. So I am coming back. So I hope you guys can come back, because Enoch is pretty good. Okay, chapter 14, verse 4. Then the Kohen shall command, and he shall take for him who is to be cleansed two live and clean birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the Kohen shall command, and he shall kill one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. Let him take the live bird, and the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and dip them and the live bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle it 7 times on him who is to be cleansed from the leprosy, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the live bird loose in the open field. And he who is to be cleansed shall wash his garments, and shall shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, and shall be clean. Then after that he comes into the camp, but shall stay outside his tent 7 days. And on the 7th day it shall be that he shaves all the hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all his hair he shaves off, and he shall wash his garment, and wash his body in water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he takes 2 male lambs, perfect ones, 2 male lambs, perfect ones, and 1 ewe lamb a year old, a perfect one, and 3/10 parts of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. And the Cohen who is cleansing shall present the man who is to be cleansed with these before Yahuwah at the door of the tent of appointment. And the Cohen shall take 1 male lamb and bring it as a guilt offering, and the log of oil, and wave them as a wave offering before Yahuwah. And he shall slaughter the lamb in the place where he slaughters the sin offering and the burnt offering in a Kadesh place. For the guilt offering, like the sin offering, belongs to the Cohen. It is most Kadesh. And the Cohen shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering, and the Cohen shall put it on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. And the Cohen shall take some of the log of oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. And the Cohen shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle some of the oil with his finger 7 times before Yahuwah. And of the rest of the oil in his hand, the Cohen puts some The Cohen puts some on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the Cohen's hand he puts on the head of him who is to be cleansed, and the Cohen shall make atonement for him before Yahuwah. And the Cohen shall make the sin offering and make atonement for him who is to be cleansed from his uncleanness. Then afterwards he slaughters the burnt offering. And the Cohen shall offer the burnt offering and the grain offering on the altar, and the Cohen shall make atonement for him, but he shall be clean. But if he is poor and is unable to afford it, then he shall take 1 male lamb as a guilt offering to be waved, to make atonement for him, and 1/10 part of the fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, and a log of oil. And 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to afford, and one shall be a sin offering, and the other a burnt offering. And he shall bring them to the Kohen on the 8th day for his cleansing to the door of the tent of appointment before Yahuwah, and the Kohen shall take the the lamb of the guilt offering and the log of oil, and the Cohen shall wave them as a wave offering before Yahuwah. And he shall slaughter the lamb of the guilt offering and and the Cohen shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Then the Cohen pours some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand. And the Cohen shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before Yahuwah. And the Cohen shall put some of the oil that is in his hand on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on the place of the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the Kohen's hand he puts on the head of him who is to be cleansed, to make atonement for him before Yahuwah. And he shall prepare one of the turtle doves or young pigeons, such as he is able to afford. What which he is able to afford, the one as a sin offering, and the other as burnt offering, with the grain offering, and the Cohen's and the Cohen shall make atonement for him who is to be cleansed before Yahuwah. This is the Torah for one who has an infection of leprosy, who is unstable to afford for his cleansing. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as a possession, and I put a plague of leprosy in a house in the land of your possession, then shall the one who owns the house come and inform the Cohen, saying, it seems to me that there is some plague in the house. And the Cohen shall command, and they shall empty the house before the Cohen goes in to look at the plague, so that all that is in the house is not made unclean. And after that, the Cohen goes in to look at the house. And he shall look at the plague and see if the plague is on the walls of the house with sunken places, greenish or reddish, which appear to be deep in the wall. Then the Cohen shall go out of the house to the door of the house and shut up the house 7 days. And the Cohen shall come again on the 7th day and look and see if the plague has spread on the walls of the house, on the walls of the house, then the Cohen shall command, and they shall remove the stones with the plague in them, and they shall throw them outside the city into an unclean place. While he lets the house be scrapped inside all around, and the dust and they scrape off, they shall pour out in an unclean place outside the city. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones, and take other mortar and plaster the house. And if the plague comes back and breaks out in the house after he has removed the stones, after he has scraped the house, and after it is plastered, then the Cohen shall come and look and see if the plague has spread in the house. It is an active leprosy in the house. It is unclean. And he shall break down the house, its stones and its timber, and all the plaster of the house. And he shall bring them outside the city to an unclean place. And he who goes into the house all the days while it is shut up becomes unclean until evening. And he who lies down in the house has to wash his garments, and he who eats in the house has to wash his garments. However, if the Kohen indeed comes in and looks at it and sees that the plague has not spread in the house after the house was plastered, then the Kohen shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. And to cleanse the house, he shall take 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And he shall kill one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. And he shall take the cedar wood and the hyssop and the scarlet and the live bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird, and in the running water, and shall sprinkle the house 7 times. He shall thus cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and the running water, and the live bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop, and with the scarlet. And he shall let the live bird loose outside the city in the open field, and shall make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the Torah for an infection of leprosy and eruption, and for a leprosy of a garment and of a house, and for a swelling, and for a scab, and for a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the Torah of leprosy. Well, family, that's it for Leviticus. We read up the chapter 14, and that's HalleluYah Scriptures. I'll be back around 8 o'clock, and we're going to finish up Enoch, and if it's still early enough, I think we're going to do Maccabees. So I hope to see you then, family. Shalom.